Get ready to discover places where the past comes to life and shows us its splendor and its enigmas. From surprising discoveries in remote mountains to unexpected finds in forgotten tombs, each of these artifacts reveals ancient secrets and connections that still take our breath away today. Number 1. The Lady of the Barfusser Church. In October 1975, a team of workers found a brick-walled burial chamber inside the Barfusser Church in Basel, Switzerland, during a renovation project. Inside the tomb, they found a pair of well-preserved coffins and, within them, 2 sets of human remains. One set was nothing more than a skeleton, but the other was the mummified corpse of a woman who would later be known as the Lady of the Barfusser Church. Later research identified her as Anna Katharina Bischoff, who was born in Strasbourg, France, in March 1719 and died in Basel in August 1787. She probably owes the location of her burial, which would normally be reserved for people of high social status, to the fact that she was the wife of Pastor Lucas Hurler, who served in the church for many years. In 2015, another series of scientific tests revealed something much more surprising. Anna is a very distant relative of Boris Johnson, the disgraced former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. We wonder what this pastor's wife would think of Boris Johnson if she had been alive to see it. Number 2. The Lost Gold of the Incas. The story of the lost gold of the Incas dates back to the 16th century, when the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro demanded a ransom of gold from the Inca king Atahualpa. The Incas began to collect the ransom, but Pizarro impatiently executed the king. The ransom is said to have been hidden in a secret cave somewhere, and there have been several reports of its discovery over the years. One of the first reports was about 50 years later, when a Spaniard named Valverde claimed to have obtained money by saying that his Inca wife's family had shown him the location of the treasure. However, the instructions on how to find it, as well as the guide and map, disappeared. It was not until 1886 that a treasure hunter named Blake claimed to have found the treasure. He described human figures, birds and animals made of life-size gold, jewelry and gold vases filled with emeralds, as well as incredibly beautiful works of metalwork. Blake took what he could carry and left with the intention of returning, but disappeared on his way back to New York. All attempts to locate him and find the lost gold have so far failed. Blake's fate and the possibility of someone else finding the lost Inca gold remain a mystery. Number 3. Mystery of the Blue Stones of Stonehenge. Much is known about Stonehenge, the famous English stone circle, but it remains a place of great mysteries. One of them is the matter of just over 40 of the site's smallest stones, known as blue stones. They do not come from anywhere in the surrounding area. Instead, they were quarried from the Preseli Hills in Pembrokeshire, Wales. That's almost 320 kilometers away and raises the question of how someone could have transported them so far 5,000 years ago. In 2019, a new study identified the precise location in the hills where the stones were taken from. Scholars have determined that the rocks were quarried using wedges to open vertical points between each natural rock pillar. At the sites, human-made stone and wooden platforms have been found in the valley below the site of Carn Godog in the Preseli Hills, presumably made and used by the architects of Stonehenge. This could ultimately explain where the stones came from and how they were dislodged from the native hillsides, but it does not explain why or how they were transported across such an enormous distance. Number 4. The Square Zune of the Four Goats. The four-goat square zune might sound like a group of random words, but it is actually a Chinese bronze ritual vessel. Specifically, it is a zune glass, which is a ritual wine glass. Historians in China believe the artifact is more than 3,000 years old, making it a relic of the late Shang dynasty era. As the artifact's name strongly implies, the vase is surrounded by four goats with coiled horns, making it totally unique in the archaeological record. Today you can find it on display inside the National Museum of China, but it was first discovered in the village of Huangkai, Hunan Province, in April 1938 by a pair of brothers digging for sweet potatoes on the side of a mountain. This is the largest square zone of its era ever discovered and also features a relief of 4 intertwined dragons accompanying their 4 goats. The 4 goats square zone actually disappeared after being hidden for safekeeping during World War II, but was eventually relocated in 1952. It was sent to the National Museum of Chinese History 7 years later, but was transferred to the National Museum from China later that same year. Number 5. The Sample Tapestry. You may have heard of the Bayeux Tapestry, but you are less likely to know about the Sample Tapestry. It is an ancient tapestry made of wool that was discovered in the ancient Darim Basin settlement of Sample, Lop County, Xinjiang, China, in 1984. When it was found, it had been transformed into a pair of men's trousers, but it was not initially designed that way, and historians find it very strange that it was cut in such a way for such a basic purpose. The tapestry is fascinating because of the many Hellenistic-era features it has, including a diadem and a Greek centaur, indicating that the piece may have originally come from the Greco-Bactrian kingdom. However, the human figure on the tapestry could be a representation of a 1st century Yuezhi soldier, in which case it would contain both ancient Greek and ancient Chinese elements, making it a very challenging artifact to understand. Identification of the figure as Chinese is controversial as it has blue eyes and Caucasian features, only his style of dress seems non-European. The dates suggested for the tapestry range from the 3rd century BC to the 4th century AD. Number 6. Panner's Treasure. The Panner hoard is so named because it was found scattered across several fields in Panner, Cumbria, England, over more than 200 years. The time elapsed between the discovery of the first artifact in the hoard and the discovery of the most recent makes it one of the most unusual treasure finds in British history. The treasure includes a set of particular silver pennon brooches made during the 10th century. The first item, a large thistle brooch, was discovered in 1785. A second brooch, almost identical to the first, was found nearby in 1830. Most of the objects in the hoard were found by 2 teams of archaeologists working in proximity to each other, with the other with metal detectors in 1989. Historians think that the large brooches were originally deposited close to each other deliberately in the year 930, but are less sure whether the rest of the items were abandoned on purpose or buried at the same time. The pieces are of a style that was first popularized during the Romano-British era, but the style was adopted by the Vikings, and these brooches are in fact almost certainly of Viking origin. Number 7. Tombs of the Reliefs. Moving to Italy, we find the tombs of the Caera reliefs. This is an Etruscan-era tomb created 2,400 years ago but discovered in 1847. The tomb is unique because almost all Etruscan-era tombs that have been discovered to date are covered in frescoes. This one, however, is decorated with stucco reliefs. Our understanding of the written Etruscan language is imperfect, but it has been possible to translate enough of the inscription inside the tomb to identify it as the private family tomb of the Matuna family. It contains no less than 32 spaces at its lowest level, above which 12 additional oblong niches were carved into the wall at some later time to allow for the addition of more bodies. Either the Matuna family was very large, or they continued to use the tomb for several generations. The presence of a lightus, horns, and an ivory folding chair inside the tomb suggests that they were a family of magistrates, but the presence of shields, armor, and weaponry implies that they could also have been warriors. Since they lived 2,400 years ago, there's no reason they couldn't be both. Number 8. The Devil on a Clay Tablet. In 2020, an ancient 20,700-year-old clay tablet found decades ago in an ancient Assyrian sanctuary was translated. This tablet depicts a demon named Zo and contains descriptions of an ancient exorcism ritual. It offers rare insights into Mesopotamian demonology and popular medicine of that time. Originally, the tablet was found in a sacred cave in northern Iraq, which was part of a temple dedicated to the gods Asadu, Ashur, and Orta. During excavations in the 1950s, archaeologists discovered this tablet along with other ancient objects. In it, Zo is depicted as a winged demon with horns, a human body, bird legs and tail, and a tongue similar to that of a snake. The text explains that Zo was considered an evil spirit capable of possessing humans and causing problems such as seizures and strange behavior. At that time, the Assyrian and Babylonian people believed that these afflictions were caused by demonic forces rather than physical illnesses. The inscription on the tablet describes a spell that priests recited in an exorcism ritual to expel Zo, stating that thanks to the power of the gods Tanu and Shamash, Zo's spirit would be expelled and left defenseless. Number 9. Sigtuna's Box. The Sigtuna box gets its name from the fact that it was found in Sigtuna, Sweden, in August 1911. It is a copper box notable for a runic inscription that was carved into its surface during the early 11th century. The box is physical evidence of a trading network that spanned the Baltic Sea during that era, but historians are more fascinated by the engraving, which takes the form of a poem. More specifically, it is an Old Norse poem written in a specific meter that was used when skaldic poets wrote praises for their rulers. In it, a cuckoo chases a thief and then eats him. It's a strange image, but it could have had symbolic meaning at the time that has subsequently been lost to the passage of time. The box probably belonged to a merchant, who would have used it to carry scales so he could weigh gold and silver no matter where he was. A second graffiti-like inscription on the box translates as Vermund colored these runes, but it is not known if Vermund was the original owner of the box. Number 10. The Pharaoh's Medal, Tutankhamun and his legacy. Tutankhamun was an Egyptian ruler who reigned from the end of the 18th dynasty in 141 BC until his death in 1324 BC, at the age of 19. Although Tutankhamun's fame paled in comparison to that of his successors, during his reign the young king was frequently praised by the Egyptian people for correcting the injustices of his predecessor and reforming Egypt after Akhenaten left it in a state of disarray. Agitation. The young pharaoh's global popularity arose primarily due to European exploration of the various royal tombs more than 3,000 years after his death. The fascination with Tutankhamun, as we know him today, arose more from his tomb than from the king himself. Howard Carter, an English archaeologist and Egyptologist, discovered Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of the Kings, Luxor, in 1922, almost completely intact. These discoveries were significant to archaeologists, as they sparked renewed interest in ancient Egypt and the wonders of Luxor, establishing Howard Carter and Tutankhamun as household names around the world. Number 11. The sacred nails and their meaning in Christianity. Some Christians, especially Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox, venerate relics claimed to be the sacred nails with which Jesus was crucified. These nails are among the instruments of passion, objects associated with the Passion of Jesus in Christian symbolism and art. The sacred nails, like other instruments, have become objects of veneration among many Christians and have been represented in paintings. However, the authenticity of these relics is questionable. Number 12. The Bust of Nefertiti. The Bust of Nefertiti, a magnificent work carved in limestone and covered with painted stucco, immortalizes Nefertiti, the great royal wife of the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten. Discovered by German archaeologist Ludwig Borchardt in Egypt, this bust dates to around 1345 BC and is attributed to the sculptor Thutmose. However, controversy surrounds its acquisition, as Borchardt may have engaged in intentional fraud by misleading Egyptian officials about the true nature of the bust. The display of the bust of Nefertiti in Berlin since 1923 has been the subject of debate and requests for repatriation by Egypt. A newly discovered document reveals that Borchardt misled Egyptian officials about the quality of the bust and provided misleading information. This revelation has intensified the dispute over the ownership of the bust of Nefertiti, and Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities has requested its return or, at least, its temporary repatriation. The controversy raises ethical considerations about the repatriation of cultural heritage and highlights the importance of addressing disputes over the possession of historical artifacts. Egypt's request is part of a global debate over the return of cultural artifacts seized during colonial times or in archaeological excavations, and Germany's refusal to return the bust highlights the complexity of these issues. Number 13. Lembrandt's tunic. It was discovered in 2011 by archaeologists conducting research in the Lembrand area in the mountainous Jenin region of Norway. This robe and other artifacts have been preserved for centuries in ice and snow, protected from the effects of time. In the Viking Age, from the 8th century to the 1st century, the Vikings, renowned for their craftsmanship and rugged clothing, played a pivotal role in medieval history through expeditions and exploration in Europe. Lembrandt's tunic, dated to that era, is more than a garment, it is a direct link with the past. This well-preserved artifact offers valuable information about Viking clothing, highlighting the skill and attention to detail in its manufacture. Made of wool with a diamond herringbone pattern, it demonstrates the Vikings' skill in textile production, highlighting the importance of clothing as protection from the elements and a symbol of social status. This discovery reinforces the idea that the Vikings valued quality and design in their clothing. Number 14. Lascaux Cave. Nestled in the picturesque landscapes of southwestern France is the extraordinary Lascaux Cave, famous for its captivating Paleolithic cave paintings. Discovered by 4 teenagers on September 12, 1940, the walls of the cave house almost 2,000 figures of animals, humans, and abstract signs. The collection includes deer, cows, bison, cats, a bird, a rhinoceros, and a bear, all engraved with great detail and artistic finesse. These paintings offer a vivid image of the ancient world and the sacred act of painting. In 1948, the cave was open to the public, but the daily influx threatened the delicate paintings. In 1963, it was decided to close Lascaux to preserve its valuable heritage. 2 decades later, an exact replica called Lascaux II emerged, offering visitors the chance to experience the magic of the cave without endangering the original works of art. The Lascaux paintings feature prominently in art history, and one particularly striking work, known as the Crossed Bison, shows the painter's extraordinary skill in capturing realism and using perspective. Despite these preservation efforts, the Lascaux cave still faces new threats, such as the growth of mold, fungi, and bacteria that can damage the paintings and erase their timeless beauty. Number 15. The Ashurbanipal Library is an archaeological treasure discovered in the 19th century by Austin Henry Layard in the ancient city of Nineveh, Iraq. Composed of more than 25,000 fragments of clay tablets, it reveals the intellectual wealth of ancient Assyria and the literary passions of King Ashurbanipal. The monarch, noted for his military and cultural achievements, sent scribes throughout his empire in search of literary treasures, building a library that ranged from chronicles and religious texts to the Epic of Gilgamesh. This impressive collection, including literary masterpieces and treatises on medicine and astronomy, offers deep insights into Assyrian culture, religion, and intellectual landscape. In 612 BC, during the siege of Nineveh, the palace that housed the library was burned down. However, the heat partially cooked the slats, preserving them as a preservative rather than destroying them. The Ashurbanipal Library is a unique testimony that has stood the test of time, inviting us to explore the history of Assyria and its king's passion for knowledge through these ancient literary fragments. Number 16. The Vatican Necropolis. The necropolis is in the Vatican, hidden beneath what is arguably the most famous basilica in the world. there is an authentic city of the dead. This macabre necropolis is located just below St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. On the surface, there is a world wonder, a structure filled with beautiful works of art, fascinating frescoes, and hundreds of years of history. But, 5 floors below, hidden in the darkness underground, is a ruin that dates back to the original founding of the Roman Empire. The altar of St. Peter is at the pinnacle of all history. The altar is stacked on top of 2,000 years of bones, with the bodies of the dead hidden beneath. Many of the bodies buried beneath the basilica are not even Christians. The oldest cemetery dates back to the 1st century AD and was used by pagans. And on top of that, there is another level of burials from the 5th century. This one is a little more interesting because it is a mix of pagan and Christian, a mausoleum from a time when the pagans of Europe were slowly converting to Catholicism. These 2 levels alone represent approximately 90% of the time the Roman Empire was in power, between 27 BC and 476 AD. Although St. Peter's Basilica is what everyone knows and what the hill is famous for, it was a sacred place for a long time.